Hello, guys. Today we're going to visit with Brooke Wiens, and she is an excellent TESOL teacher at Crestview Elementary. Welcome, Brooke.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I don't know how many of you know what a TESOL teacher does, but we're going to learn today. And could you tell us, Brooke, a little bit about TESOL, what it is, and what is a normal day for you? What's that look like?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question, but I'll start with what is TESOL? TESOL stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. And so I work in a building in an elementary school, and we have 25 countries represented in our building, kindergarten through fifth grade, and 23 languages. So when I say
Really?
no day is ever really the same, it's not a lie. But yeah, we have a lot of different representation in our building, which is a really beautiful thing. But it also comes with some challenges, right? Because we're dealing with lots of different cultures and lots of different expectations and norms of what they're used to in their home countries. And then, trying to bridge that gap to their new life in American schooling system. So I do have a set schedule that I try to keep. And then we operate kind of in our building under two kind of branches. We'll do what we call push-in services. So our students that are higher proficient English speakers, they might come in with a pretty good foundation with the English language. We do a placement test, and then that kind of tells us, where they fall on that continuum. So the push-in students get support where I go into their classroom and support them usually with math or science and social studies time with the academic language piece.
So wait a minute. So how does that? So let's say I'm from Africa and I'm speaking, I don't know, what's an African language?
Dinka.
Dinka. I'm speaking mostly Dinka. I know a little English, right?
Uh-huh.
But I'm in this classroom and the teacher's talking about something. What do you do exactly?
So what I'll do is I'll go in, I'll listen while the teacher's giving the instruction. And then usually there's a time that they call like a turn and talk where the students can collaborate and talk about what's happening so far in the lesson. So I'll turn and talk with specific students. Sometimes I bring in, if I do the planning with the teachers ahead of time, I will bring in kind of language scaffolds or pictures that would also support what's being talked about with the content in that classroom.
Because you don't speak all these languages, right?
No, I don't. But most of the students, if I'm in the classroom with them, their language is high enough that they're able, with a few picture supports, with a few writing supports, they're able to perform with those supports, just like their peers in the classroom.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. Great question. So that's my push-in support. And then I also pull out the lowest proficient language speakers. And so those are the kids that are coming that are totally brand new to English, or have maybe been here 1 or 2 years and are still needing additional language support. And so I pull them out for reading and for writing time in my classroom. And we work, usually it's a small group of, ideally we would like 5, 6 in that group. But with the recent influx of a bunch of newcomers from countries like Afghanistan, our groups are growing quickly in our building. And so my group is currently at like 7 or 8, which is still manageable, but it's approaching too big of a group for it to be considered a small group. And then we just do.
But these people might all speak different languages too, right?
Yeah. So my small group of 7 or 8 right now speak 4 or 5 different languages. I don't know any of them other than like hello in their language, because I really am a firm advocate of being able to greet students in what I call their heart language, the language of their history and their people. And so I will do my best to learn how to greet them in their language. And then that's about where it stops with my language abilities.
Okay.
So yeah, so so those two, between those two, I work with 2 different grade levels within our building. And so I'm kind of hopping all day long, whether I'm going into classrooms or pulling small groups out. Sometimes I'm asked to help families in the front office do our enrollment paperwork because it's all online and none of it is translated yet. We're working on that. And so sometimes I call and get an interpreter on the line and we can do the enrollment form that way. Sometimes they have enough English for me to be able to paraphrase it in a little bit simpler language for them to help them with that.
Mhm.
So I could be doing a million different things each day. It just
Are
kind
you
of
the only TESOL teacher there?
no, there are 4 of us this year, and then we have 2 aides that work in our kind of department as
I
well.
would think that would be a good career to go into. I mean, I think it's growing, isn't it?
It is growing. Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
huge need for language instructors within different school districts around the country and around our city and state too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's great. I love being able to be that cultural liaison um, between the family and the school, and really helping the family. School is done a lot different in Western societies and in the US than most of the countries of the world. And so just to be able to help bridge that gap with them
How
is
is it different? Just like curious.
well, everything from like uniforms to like the involvement of parents in a lot of countries, the teachers are seen and the school is seen as the expert. And so families don't really have much input into their child's learning. There's no room for the parent to advocate for their kid in a lot of countries. And so we get a lot of families that just don't understand that, hey, you need to call the school when your child's going to be absent and report the absence, right? Like
Oh,
just little things like that, like are so different than
that we take for granted. Yeah.
take for granted.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you don't have the language to be able to communicate that. And so that's something that we try to work on as a language team as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it in your life that led you to this career?
So great question. I grew up overseas. I grew up in West Africa. And so spent 18 years there, came back to the US for college.
Did you speak English in West Africa or did you speak other languages too?
Yeah. So our school that I went to an American boarding school, and it was in another country, and it was all done in English. My parents and as a family, we spoke English, but we learned French as the national language. And then we also learned one of the languages of one of the people groups in Mali called Bambara. So that helps too when I'm working with kids and families, because especially with my African population, I can say, hey, I understand, I'm from Africa too. And then that starts a story and a conversation. And, it just does good things to help build that rapport with them.
Right, right.
So I'm grateful for
It
that.
probably gives them a feeling that
Yeah.
you're kind of with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, the whole cultural thing, I get moving cultures. I've done it a lot. It is not easy. You have my utmost respect coming to a new culture. And so I just want them to know, like, hey, listen, I've done this. Might be under different circumstances. I'm not saying my story is exactly like your story. The parent that's sitting across from me, because they might have experienced war or something very traumatic to bring them here. But on a small scale, there's something that we can connect and relate on. And I think that's what all humans desire, right? Is that connection with people. And so if I can help be that bridge and that liaison, I'm happy to do it. So I grew up overseas, and I started teaching 4th grade. Oh, back up. In college, my family all told me, we see some strengths in you for being an educator. You should go into education. And, as an 18-year-old, you want to be in control and make your own choices. So I decided I was going to go into international business because that would get me on the first plane back out of the US, because I was not going to stay in the US. It wasn't home, right? It wasn't my culture. But my second year of college, in the work study program I was in, they, interestingly enough, placed me in an elementary school, which I do not believe was by accident.
Huh.
And of course, now I know that the teacher they placed me with just needed a break from 2 of her special friends in her class on those days that I came. And so she would put me at the back of the room with 2 of what I call the naughties, or the challenging friends. And I fell in love with working with kids who were maybe a little bit tired and burnt out in school and didn't want to do the work. And that whole concept of trying to motivate them and finding out what they loved so that we could build a bridge and make that connection was something that I really enjoyed. So I switched my major right away, went into education. Right after college, I decided I didn't have Asia in my passport. So I thought, why not? I'll go to Asia. So I taught for a year in South Korea in
Oh,
Seoul at an
oh,
American school. So that also gave me some experience as an adult. Things are different now that your family's not there, right? And
mhm.
transitioning to a different country and all of that's involved there. So um, it's all part of the story. And here I am 20 years later serving in this district here in Kansas City, and have fallen in love with the job that I have and the people I get to work with every
And you
day.
get to so many different people. I guess
Yeah,
you just get new ones all the time too.
all the time.
Yep.
Yep, all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. What is the most rewarding thing for you out of your job? What would,
well, yeah,
yeah.
I think it's kind of twofold. I love connecting with the kids and really making sure and being able to kind of see that spark of when the learning takes off.
Mhm.
Okay, there's three things that give me great joy. The second thing would be I love in my room when I can have books that represent my students and reflect their nationality and maybe some of the things, their beliefs and systems that they come with. And so I've worked really hard to make sure that the books in my classroom that kids read reflect them, right? Like they're not just all little white kids.
Right. But are they like in English? Are they in English?
Most of my books are in English, but it's incredibly fascinating to me. I will have newcomers, that's what we call the friends that come with zero English. I will have newcomer students that arrive with very limited English proficiency, and they will find the book that reflects them. And 9 times out of 10, they will pick the book. Like I had a student who came out of war in Syria, and she picked a book about a woman in Iraq who hid library books to save the library in her city. Beautiful story based on a true story called The Librarian of Basra. She kept that book in her book box to read and look at the pictures every single day. I couldn't understand a word she was saying, but she was connecting with that book in some way. And so to me, that's beautiful, right? Like it
Yep.
supersedes any kind of language roadblock that might be in the way. And it just speaks for itself. So I work really hard at making sure that kids can see themselves in the books that they're reading, even if they don't know the language for it yet. We can read the pictures. We know that's still reading. And
It's
so,
almost like music. Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Universal.
Yeah. So that's been really something that brings me great joy is to see that connection happen and then kind of come to life with their learning. And then I would say also just making sure I can connect with families. My greatest joy is when I can get into the families' homes, do a home visit, sit around and drink some Turkish coffee because they're all so hospitable or whatever they serve, and so that just helps build that relationship with families. It builds trust. It
What
builds,
a great career.
yeah,
How that's just so rewarding.
it is. It is. And you know what? I didn't know anything about this program until a coworker of mine was walking down the hall about 10 years ago. And she said, or 12 years ago, maybe now. And she said, "Hey, this is totally you. You need to apply for this." And there was a co-op program that they had started in our district to train classroom teachers to become certified in TESOL. I had no idea. I had no idea about the program. She's like, "It's totally you. You need to apply. The deadline's tonight at midnight." And I said,
Oh,
"Okay."
okay.
When I applied, because it was totally me, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I was accepted, and then the rest is history. Here I am.
Okay. Do you have one or two success stories? I mean, individuals that you still follow, maybe that you've seen grow and bloom?
Yes. So I was thinking about this question. And one of the things that I think is really important to talk about is how we define success. I have students that come kind of from all different backgrounds. And so success for each kid looks really, really different.
Mhm.
I have a student that came last year he came in the middle of the pandemic. He's from an island nation, was used to kind of just being free. And his job, he didn't attend school because of some learning and behavior challenges there. And so he came in the middle of the pandemic. He didn't know any language here. It was cold. He didn't know anything about cold. Um,
Here's a coat.
That's
You'll
right.
need this coat.
Whole cultural, anything that he could relate to was completely thrown out the window.
Uh-huh.
He had no animals to take care of because that was his role back home. And he came here, and then he was put in an elementary school, and, you know, he had to sit all day, and he had to attend, and he
Oh,
had
yeah.
to,
That's like,
it was just not the right time and place. And the poor child was stuck in flight mode and super anxiety, high anxiety. And so we put a team together really quickly. And now he's a fourth grader. He can sit in a chair. He can do school, as we like to say. He can, you know, sit on the carpet while his teacher's giving the lesson, and he can write what he needs to copy down and write. He's learning his letters and letter sounds. So for him, that's huge success, right? Like, he's no longer stuck in that flight mode or that fight mode. He's able to be in a setting where he has friends, he can play with kids at recess, you know, he can choose a library book, all kinds of things. So he's starting to communicate in English a little bit more. So for him, that's a great success story.
Yeah.
We're really happy with that. I have another student that came out of war in Syria about 5 years ago. She started with me in third grade, had very limited to no English. I worked really closely with the family to just, you know, kind of help get them situated here. It was really my first exposure to working with someone from a war situation. And so worked with their family, worked with her, took them to grocery stores, you know, like just all the things to try to get them acclimated to life here in Kansas City. Formed a great friendship with the family. And so I've been able to keep track of the family. Their little girl that started with me in third grade has exited the language program in 2 years. No longer needs language support, is thriving in her 8th grade classes and getting great grades, and she's on to great things. So
that's
her,
awesome.
her success story looks a little bit different,
Right.
right? But both have been super successful so far. So exciting to be able to see these families and students as they progress, and, you know, cheer them on and help them.
This is such an important job too. Such an important job.
Yeah.
You have to be a special person to do this. I mean, you have to have a giving heart and, you know, just a caring,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So I'm trying one day at a time, right?
Yeah.
It's been a challenge the last couple of years, but it's been good. Our school has been face-to-face throughout the entire pandemic. We shut down for a little bit that first March of 2020, but other than that, we've been face-to-face. So that's been really helpful for continuing the work and building
I'm so glad that that's lifting up and
me too,
getting back to normal.
Yeah.
Or that much anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
And
thanks for having me.
Just keep doing what you're doing. It sounds awesome. And I hope you get some more help though.
Hopefully.
It's like you might need it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Brooke, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.